Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Targa Exploration Corp. It's a Canadian company focused on gold and critical mineral exploration in Canada. Now, Targa leverages access to capital, technology, and talent to cost-effectively assess mineral potential and advance projects towards mineral discovery. Targa's flagship asset, Opanaka, is located in Quebec and covers more than 85,000 hectares or 210,000 acres of mineral claims that are 100% owned by the company. Exploration work completed in 2023 identified multiple gold and lithium anomalies in till samples and demonstrated the significant potential at Opanaka for future gold and lithium discoveries. Please welcome its president and CEO, Cameron Tymstra. Welcome to the conference today, Cameron.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning. Happy to be here.
Wonderful.
So thank you for that great introduction. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that great introduction, Anna. Just a little disclaimer, obviously, we'll be making some forward-looking statements about our exploration programs here. This is available for download on our website at www.targaexploration.com. And just to give you a bit of background about Targa to start with, we're a pretty young company. We were listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange under the ticker TEX, sort of near the end of 2022. And the original vision for Targa Exploration was to be solely focused on hard rock lithium exploration in Canada, particularly early stage exploration. We went out last year and sort of at the end of 2022 and assembled a very large land package consisting of 15 projects spread across 4 different provinces, covering over 400,000 hectares of land. And we began going out last year and exploring on those mineral concessions, again, looking for indicators and the possible presence of lithium pegmatite style deposits. But what's really exciting here is because we're working in areas that have really been underexplored or unexplored historically for any element, we certainly kept our eyes open for anything else that we might find out there. And that was particularly the case for our Opanaka project, where we did an extensive sampling program last year. We did uncover indications of the potential for lithium pegmatite projects, but what was much more exciting was the gold potential that we uncovered on that project, uncovering an anomaly that was about 4 kilometers by 5 kilometers in size, indicating the presence of a possible large gold source in the bedrock somewhere nearby. So we've sort of changed the focus of the company in the last couple of months since receiving those results. We're now focused on both gold and lithium, particularly given the excitement around our Opanaka project. That's really going to be the focus of our exploration efforts for this year, and it will receive the lion's share of our exploration budget as well. Now, in addition to the asset portfolio that we have, we've got a great team behind us. We're operating in fantastic jurisdictions in Quebec, where our Opanaka project is. They've got an incredibly supportive government there. There's a lot of funds that specifically look to invest in Quebec-based exploration projects. So access to capital is very good. And they also have the most favorable tax laws related to exploration and mineral development in Canada, ones that we can certainly take advantage of to limit dilution when we're financing our exploration projects there. The team we've built to support Targa really started with the Inventa Capital Group, and that's a Vancouver-based resource incubator, private group that essentially goes out and looks for exciting mineral projects and ideas, pairs those with capital that they raise from themselves and pools of investors that they have to really put forward new public companies. That Inventa Capital Group's released probably close to 10 public companies today. Many of them have been quite successful, particularly Vizsla Silver, if you're familiar. It is listed on the New York Stock Exchange as well, has a market cap of, I think, close to $500 million today. And its founder and chairman, Craig Perry, also one of the co-founders and principals at the Inventa Capital Group, as one of our strategic advisors. We've also partnered with Discovery Group out of Vancouver. The principals and co-founders there have brought to market some pretty successful stories as well, particularly Great Bear Resources, which was sold to Kinross Gold for over $1 billion, and Kaminak Gold, which was sold to Goldcorp a number of years ago for about half a billion dollars as well. So we've really got a huge amount of success and experience on our board and our advisors and our management team. I myself am a mining engineer by background, but I've spent most of the last 15 years exploring for different minerals throughout North and South America. So we've got a great technical team behind us as well. So we've really brought together an exciting portfolio with a team and a board of advisors with a huge depth and resume of success. Not only success in making mineral discoveries, but in translating that success in the field to success for their investors as well. So again, just a brief overview of our portfolio. We've got 15 different projects in the portfolio. Last year, we focused most of our efforts on our 4 or 5 projects located in Quebec. Some of our work was done in Ontario as well. But this year, probably 90 to 95% of our budget is going to be spent specifically at Opunaka. We will do some work in Ontario and Saskatchewan looking for lithium on those projects. We do have some requirements here in Canada to do some sort of minimum expenditures on exploration in order to keep our ownership of the claims in good standing every couple of years. So we will be doing a little bit of limited work in Ontario and Saskatchewan as well. But again, Opunaka is really going to be our focus this year, and it's going to be the focus for the rest of this presentation as well. This asset, again, is one that we own 100% interest in. There is a 3% royalty that's held by Kennerland Minerals. They're a project generator and exploration company up here in Canada. We purchased the project from at the end of 2022. This project was originally about 45,000 hectares in size and located about 40 kilometers south of Patriot Battery Metals' large Corvette lithium deposit. For those of you who are not as familiar with the lithium space, that Corvette deposit is the largest lithium pegmatite resource in North America. We sit pretty close to that, and we originally acquired this project due to the presence of some geological units on these claims that were very similar to the geological units responsible for the emplacement of those pegmatites up at Corvette. There was also some interesting geochemical indicators, and so we kickstarted a program here last year, sampling the till that covers the land here, looking for those chemical indicators for things like lithium and cesium. Now that we're going to be much more focused at gold at Opunaka, I should point out that the closest large operating gold mine in this area is the Eleanor Gold Mine. That's a mine that's owned by Newmont Mining, produces about 250,000 ounces of gold per year. And it's really the closest analog to what we could potentially be looking for in discovering at Opunaka in terms of a similar geological environment to our area at Opunaka, close to some similar geological boundaries as well. But we really don't know what's going to be out there at Opunaka yet. But from what we can tell, Eleanor so far is kind of the closest comparison that we might be able to come up with. So the work that we did last year, again, this part of Canada was glaciated during the last ice age, so completely covered in ice. And as that ice sort of swept across the land, it was incredibly heavy. It was 1 to 2 kilometers thick. And basically, as that moved across the land during the ice age, it scraped up the bedrock and crushed that material down and transported that material as that ice was moving. And then as the ice receded at the end of the ice age, and it left all of that material, which we call till, sitting on top of the bedrock. And it's a mix of clay, sand, gravel, and boulders that's been kind of strewn across the land and mixed up and pushed down the way. But that is sort of the best material that we have access to, since it's right at the surface, to help us understand what is in the bedrock. And so last year we went out and we took 1,000 samples at Opunaka from this till material. We take the very fine fraction of the till that's been ground up and we sent it to lab for analysis. That sample program covered an area of about 35 kilometers by 6 kilometers in size. So it's a way for us to really get into these areas that have never been explored before and really understand the geochemistry with minimum effort. So we can cover a huge area very quickly. It only took us a couple weeks to conduct this survey. Results we took a couple months to get back in the lab. And originally we were looking for indicators of lithium deposits. And we did find an anomaly that I'll show in a few minutes that was anomalous for lithium and cesium that could indicate the presence of lithium pegmatites nearby. But what was much more exciting is what you see on the screen right now. And that is the significant gold anomaly that we found on the project. The main gold anomaly is about 4 kilometers wide by 5 kilometers long. That width is perpendicular to the direction that the ice traveled, and that's very important because that could indicate how wide a potential deposit or source in the bedrock could be up ice. But the anomaly that we found went right up to the limit of where we were sampling. So we don't know exactly where in the bedrock a source is going to be yet. Our task for this year is to go out and continue that sampling up ice in the direction that the ice came from to ultimately try to locate a bedrock source. Our anomaly here was not just anomalous for gold, it was overlapping for gold, arsenic, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner here, as well as tungsten and antimony. Really, those are all the key elements that you want to look for when exploring for orogenic gold deposits. And we have all those elements overlapping over a very wide area with very high grades as well. And in a moment, I'll show you a comparison to some other known gold deposits that we looked at. We looked at the till trains associated with those gold mines and gold deposits to understand how far that material travels from a bedrock source, what sort of grades are present in the fine fraction that we're sampling relative to the sort of grades that you see in those fine fractions of the tills associated with those other known gold deposits. And that's what has us incredibly excited at Opunaka, is not only the grades are there, but also the widths and actually seem to exceed the other known gold deposits that we've seen. And we've seen not only one gold anomaly at Opunaka, but you can see a little bit to the east there. There's a smaller but higher grade gold anomaly as well present on the property. that anomaly is also associated with arsenic and tungsten and antimony, actually much higher grades than even the larger anomaly. So we're incredibly excited what we found here. This is the reason we've decided to change our focus from solely lithium to much more gold forward. We've rebranded our slide deck and our website and our marketing materials to match that. All of our investors who originally came in as lithium investors are much more excited now about the gold, especially given the environment for lithium prices today relative to last year, and the way gold is performing this year. So this is certainly going to be our focus going forward. Looking at some other known deposits and how till is associated with that. For people who are unfamiliar with the idea of sampling till as part of an exploration program, it is quite a bit different than soil sampling. Soil samples typically represent the bedrock that is located below the soil, but because the ice has transported this material, the samples that we're taking from the surface typically represent bedrock that is somewhere up ice, but we don't know how far. So tracking down a bedrock source is similar to seeing smoke in the sky and following that smoke upwind to locate a fire. We're taking samples of the till, analyzing them and looking at those results and following that sampling program up ice until we ultimately find a bedrock source. Here in the top left, you can see the Eleanor gold mine that I mentioned and the till train that's associated with that deposit, which is located at the kind of northeast end of the lake on the small map there. Their anomaly typically stretched from about 6 to 7 kilometers in length, where we're still seeing those sort of plus 25 or plus 50 ppb, that's parts per billion gold in the till. And it stretched over a width of about 3 kilometers or so. So relative to what we've seen at Apponaca from just the early phase wide space sampling that we've done, again, we're seeing a width of about 4 kilometers there and still seeing many of those sort of plus 25 and plus 50 ppb samples there. Looking at the Renault deposit, which is a more recent discovery in this area of Quebec, made by the partners who are actually doing the exploration work on our project as well. Their initial anomaly there was only about 1.5 kilometers wide, similar grades and width to what we see for our smaller anomaly to the east. So we're very excited about what we've seen. Again, the geology that we know of so far around Apponaca, that data is very sparse because this area has not been explored for anything before. But the similarities do exist between there and what's seen over at the Eleanor gold mine. Now, I should mention lithium, of course, because we were originally a lithium-focused explorer, and that's why we went to Apponaca in the first place. You can see here, these are the results of the lithium and cesium values from that till sampling program. We did come up with a nice-looking anomaly right at the eastern limit of that sampling grid. We will be investigating this as part of our exploration program this year. And that anomaly in the till sampling coincided with some very favorable-looking geology that our geologists recognized just a little bit up ice from that anomaly. So that area is certainly going to be a focus for us going ahead this year as well. So fortunately for this program, we'll be able to get sort of 2 birds with 1 stone when we're going there for this year. Now, in terms of our program for this year, this exploration program is fully funded. We closed the financing at the end of March, where we raised about 1.5 million Canadian dollars. We closed another financing earlier in December, where we closed a little over $2 million as well. Most of that is what we would consider to be flow-through money here in Canada. So that's money specifically that's going to be spent on exploration. And this program has already gotten underway. So it's pretty good timing with this conference. We decided to fast track the program a little bit, and our crews arrived in the field on Monday. I think the helicopter arrived on Tuesday, and yesterday was the first day that they were back out in the field, continuing our sample program from where we left off last year. So the strategy this year is to continue the same till sampling spacing that we started with last year, where we're taking sample lines spaced 1 kilometer apart and samples every 150 meters down those lines. We'll continue in the up ice direction, taking those samples basically until we stop seeing anomalous gold and arsenic in the till. And the way we're going to do that much more quickly is opposed to having to send everything to the lab, wait a couple months for results, and then come back in the field. We're bringing a portable XRF machine with us, that's X-ray fluorescence, that allows us to analyze the elements in the fine fraction of that till while we're in camp, so before actually sending anything to the lab. And while gold is, not easy to detect with those devices, it's not very accurate, arsenic is, and we saw very strong correlation between arsenic and gold in the sample work that we did last year. Arsenic values are higher than gold values, and so they're much more easy to detect accurately with that portable equipment. So we'll be using that arsenic signature as our real-time data in the field to kind of help navigate our team on where they should focus their efforts while we're out there. So we'll continue with this wide space sampling, using that XRF to pinpoint where the anomaly stops, and then we'll move in with a much tighter spaced infill sampling grid on 250 meters of lines to really kind of hone in on where a bedrock source could possibly be. This area is not completely covered in till. There is significant amounts of outcrops scattered around. Whether or not a mineralized bedrock source is going to be exposed at surface or buried under till is not something we know at this time, but hopefully something that we will answer a little later this year. So in addition to the till sampling, we're going to have a geology prospecting team in the field as well. They'll be looking for mineralized boulders and also hopefully mineralized outcrop. It's really the identification of mineralized outcrop that could potentially fast track us to the next phase of exploration, which would be a diamond drilling program. If the event is that nothing is exposed at surface and it could be buried under till, we'll probably have to return later this year with a more detailed geophysics program to better understand the subsurface and what could be controlling the gold mineralization before we ultimately bring in a drill rig. So there's certainly an optimistic scenario where we could be bringing in a drill rig by the end of this year and drilling in the winter, or possibly waiting till next summer for that phase of exploration, really dependent on the results for the work in the field that's going on right now. And that work is going to take us about a month. So in about 4 weeks' time, we should be wrapped up this program. Samples will go to the lab and we'll have those results sometime in mid-August. So in terms of a case study of another discovery that was made in this part of Canada, using the same sort of method of exploration that we're using, in fact, using the exact same field team that we're using. This is a discovery that was made just a few years ago by Kennerland Minerals with their project partner Sumitomo Metals, a large Japanese mining company. They went out in 2018, as you can see in the top left image here. That program was a till sampling program, just like the one we did last year, with lines spaced about 1 kilometer apart. They came up with a small anomaly here that was about 4 or 5 samples in a row that were above 25 ppb gold. And that was really their only indication of their initial anomaly. They then went back in 2019, as you can see here in this middle image. You can sort of see this trail of pink leading up to the yellow star. They did some more infill sampling at a tighter spacing like we're going to do this year and continue moving up ice, ultimately until they see the termination of the elevated values in the till, indicating that they must be above or close to the bedrock source. After the 2019 till sampling, they had enough data that they were able to go and drill in 2020. And that's when they had some of their maiden drill intersections, including 29 meters of about 8.5 grams per ton gold. Fast forward to today, they've now drilled about 100,000 meters of drilling here. They don't have a resource estimate that's been released yet, but people we've talked to who are familiar with the drill programs there are pretty confident that there's at least several million ounces of gold that have been delineated to date with that drill program. And it all started with just 4 or 5 samples in a row in the till with elevated gold values. You compare that to what we see from our test work that we did last year, where we have a much more significantly sized anomaly with the same or higher grades than what they were seeing there. And that's why our team is really excited about the potential to host not one, but possibly multiple bedrock sources of gold here at Opanaka. And again, the Kennerland team that made this discovery and did all the field work, we're still contracting them as the project operator to do the field work and execute all the logistics and sampling for us over at Opanaka. So just quickly, I got a couple more minutes here, and then I'd like to kind of open it up to some questions if anybody has any. Just looking at our corporate structure, again, we were listed on the Canadian exchange, the CSE, under the symbol TEX. We're also on the OTCQB under the symbol TRGEF. So a lot of our shares are held pretty tightly by a lot of the original founding shareholders. You can see Kennerland Minerals here, since we purchased the Opanaka project from them. They did receive quite a few shares as part of that transaction, so they own about 7% of our outstanding shares. There's several Quebec-based funds in there that are shareholders. Of course, management board and advisors as well are all significant shareholders. So a pretty tight structure. Right now, we've got a little under 100 million shares outstanding. I think today we're trading around 10 cents Canadian, giving us a market cap, I think today, of about 10 billion Canadian dollars. I think the numbers we have up there are a few weeks out of date. So, very, very low market cap for, I think, the potential that we have here. Obviously, it's a till anomaly. It's not a bedrock discovery yet. We really consider the project to be in the pre-discovery phase. But given the data that we have so far, and when we compare that data to other known gold deposits and known gold mines, we're incredibly excited about what we see, given the size of the anomalies and the grades of those anomalies. So in terms of the pre-discovery data that we have and the potential that could lead to, has us incredibly excited, and really the reason why we're pushing pretty much all of our chips at Targa onto the Opanaka project here for this year, because we see the greatest potential for discovery success at Opanaka throughout our portfolio. So just to kind of wrap it up, I mean, again, we've brought together some incredible backers, shareholders, board and advisors, and management team that have a deep history of success in this business. It is a tough business. It's a business with a lot of risks, also potentially a lot of rewards. And I really believe that Targa has been set up to really maximize the odds for shareholders, given that we have such an exciting project with incredible data. We're sitting at a very low market cap right now. That financing that we closed back in March, the hard dollar units there were 10 cents. So we're priced at, in the market right now, the same pricing that those larger high net worth individuals and shareholders participated in just a couple months ago. So for retail investors there, they still have an opportunity to participate at the same level that everybody else did. And in terms of timing, our people are in the field right now executing on that work. So this isn't a matter of, hey, pay attention to Targa. We're going to start doing some exploration in 6 months when the snow melts. The snow has melted. Our teams are in the field. We do expect to have news flow and results from that work coming in over the next sort of 1, 2, and 3 months time. That'll leave us a window of opportunity in September to go back into the field to follow up on any of that work while the ground is still snow free. We can certainly drill and do certain geophysics works and things like that year round up here in Canada. But a lot of that initial prospecting work, when you need the ground to be thawed, so you can take those till samples, or when you want to actually get on the ground and look at bedrock surfaces and things like that, we do need it to be snow free. So that's why we've managed to really cram all of our early stage exploration work in just to the next 4 weeks, so we can get data with enough time to go back in the field and do another program in September to follow up on that and hopefully identify some drill targets for a future drill program. We've got a lot of other projects in the portfolio. Again, the lithium specific ones, I won't go into any of the details on those today. A lot of information is certainly available on those on our website. You can also download a more extensive PowerPoint presentation that does include details on those other assets. Again, we'll be doing some limited programs on those, but the lion's share of our work this year is really going to be at Opanaka, and that's where we're going to be, and like I said, putting all of our chips in, and we're all incredibly excited about what we could potentially be finding out there. We staked another 40,000 hectares of ground to really cover all of the ground a bedrock source could possibly be located in. We've got about 30 kilometers of up ice runway from that central anomaly of ground that's covered and 100% owned by us. And we typically see sort of till train lengths sort of in the 10 kilometers or less range. So we've got a pretty high level of confidence that whatever is shedding the gold into this system is going to be located on our concessions. And it's our task over the next couple of months to track that down. Anna, I think we've got some time. So if there's any questions out there, be free to field some of those.
Yes, thank you. We do have some questions for you. You mentioned this earlier, but talk a little bit more about who are Targa's largest shareholders.
So since Targa was incubated out of the Inventa Capital Group, a lot of the principals at that group, including Craig Perry, one of our advisors, and chairman and co-founder of Visa Silver, as a big shareholder. Michael Connert, his other partner at Inventa Capital, also significant shareholders. The co-principals and co-founders of Discovery Group, also big shareholders of the company. Kennerland Minerals is probably one of our largest single shareholders as well. They've been very supportive of the project so far. And more recently, in that last financing, we did, after receiving the results from last year at Opanaka, a number of the Quebec-based investment funds that focus on resource investing, including SIDEX and NQI, we're incredibly excited about the potential of this project and its potential to help develop more of northern Quebec. So they became significant shareholders as a result of our last financing. In fact, for I think the fund NQI, which is a new resource investment fund, I think Targa was their first or second ever investment there. They're sort of a brand new fund, but they were really excited to get on board and participate. So we've got a lot of solid shareholders. Some of the shares outstanding did go to project vendors for some of the assets that we acquired last year. And what we'd like to do is, when we do end up giving out shares like that to project vendors, we always keep in touch with those vendors because they're not necessarily always going to be long-term shareholders. They may be prospectors, for example, but we always try to keep in touch with those to try to move blocks of shares from hands like that maybe aren't interested in hanging on to them to stronger hands and investors that want to hold those shares long-term without them getting dumped on the market. So we always keep in touch with those shareholders to see if there's any blocks coming available, because we usually have more sophisticated, longer-term investors that are interested in purchasing those large blocks. So that way we can kind of limit what ends up on the market and keep those shares in solid hands.
Wonderful. Talk a little bit about what the next 12 months look like for Targa.
Yeah, so for Targa, I mean, certainly the exploration season is now upon us here in Northern Canada. That's really going to be what we're focused on for the next 3 or 4 months. Our field crews are on the ground right now, and they'll be there for the next 4 weeks or so. So in terms of news flow, I mean, if we do discover mineralized boulders and mineralized outcrop over the next month, there could be some near-term news associated with that. In terms of getting results back from the lab, we expect that sort of mid-August. And then if we do go back for a follow-up program in September, certainly an announcement related to that work that we'll do and any future drill programs that may come up sort of in the next 12 months. So we'll really be focused on, nailing down the source of these anomalies. That's going to be our single focus over this summer season. Certainly, if we do move towards a larger drilling program, there will likely be a financing associated with that at some point in the future. But all the work that we're doing right now, all the field work this season, that's already been fully funded.
We have a few questions from our viewers. I want to fit in. Bryant is asking specifically for the Abenaka region, what is the infrastructure like? Roads, water, power? What's it like?
Great. Yeah, great question. Quebec is a great region because they do like to develop their infrastructure in the north. Specifically at Abenaka, we're located about 40 or 45 kilometers south of what's known as the Trans-Taiga Highway. That's an all-seasons road that runs east-west just to the north of the project. And parallel to that highway is a high-voltage power line. That power line comes from a hydroelectric station. So the power up in that region is all green power or emission-free power, which is essential for a lot of major mining companies right now that are looking to purchase new assets. They're also looking to transition their operations to sort of a net zero status over the next 10 or 20 years. In order for them to accomplish that, their mines are going to have to be attached to green power grids. So we do have pretty good access to infrastructure. In terms of exploration infrastructure, we're setting up our field camps right off of that highway so we can drive to our camps. And then our field crews typically take a helicopter down to the project each day.
And Sabrina asks, how close to indicated reserves are you and what studies are currently being performed?
Yeah, so right now we're still in the earlier phases of exploration. Like I said, we're sort of a pre-discovery phase. In order for us to advance to something like an indicated or inferred resource, we would have to do an extensive amount of drilling. We're just not there yet. Really, our goals this year are identifying drill targets so we can actually, mobilize drill rigs in the future. In terms of how long it could take to drill out a resource and do a resource estimate, typically that's going to be on the order of a couple of years. Certainly depends on the deposit type and deposit size, and we just don't know enough about the geology at Abenaki yet to really understand what the bedrock source is and what that's going to look like.
And May asks, since the till is the most loosely moving part of the ground, how accurate would any indication of content in the bedrock below be?
Yeah, so certainly that till does get moved many kilometers as this gets pushed by the ice. That's why we have to do these sorts of extensive surveys that we're doing this year, that we started last year. Last year we took 1,000 samples across the land. This year we're going to be taking close to 3,000 additional samples on top of that. So we really do have to take quite a bit of samples to track down that bedrock source and really hone in on where it could be coming from. That sort of example I gave with Kennerland's other discovery with Sumitomo at their Renault deposit, that took them about 2 years worth of sample work to track down a drill target. We're sort of in the second year equivalent of what they were doing. So it can be very successfully used in tracking down bedrock sources, but often it does have to be paired with other exploration techniques. It's possible that if we do not identify mineralized bedrock sources this year, that we'll have to come in with some more detailed geophysics work, like a detailed IP or gravity survey to help us understand the structures that could be hosting the mineralization.
And Joe asks, what adjustments had to be made on your team to switch focus to gold from lithium?
Not a lot at this stage. We do have an excellent PhD lithium geologist on our team, but we've also recently hired an exploration manager sort of at the end of last year, whose experience spans, a lot of gold and base metals as well. And we're still retaining Kennerland Minerals, even though we own the asset 100% now, as a project operator for us. And they have extensive gold exploration experience in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. Again, they're the ones that made that discovery a couple of years ago using this till sampling technique. So we're relying on great partners that have that sort of gold exploration and discovery success behind them to support us at Abenaka. And
Gilberto asks, what is the exit strategy for Targa? Is it to produce, partner, sell?
Certainly the fastest wealth that's created is usually done during the discovery process. Here at Targa, we'd certainly welcome, an exit strategy like a buyout in the future if we are successful in making a large gold discovery here at Opinaka, and drilling out that discovery to produce a resource estimate or reserve estimate. We would certainly be open to the idea of a buyout or a partnership. Obviously, it's very, very early stage at this time, but it takes a whole different team of people to put a mine into production. It can often take 10 years to do that. So certainly in terms of creating wealth as fast as possible for shareholders, the discovery process is really, in my opinion, the best way to do that.
Last question for you, Cameron. It's from Ivan. And he says, when you say the exploration program is fully funded, how far exactly does it take you? And to the point where you need to partner to produce?
Yeah, so the funds that we have right now are sufficient for all this till sampling and prospecting work that we're doing this summer, as well as enough to go back for some follow-up work in September. Where we would need to refinance down the line would be for a drill program. At that point, we would likely do that through other private placements as opposed to partnerships. Again, since it's such an early stage project, we want to keep as much of that value creation as possible for our shareholders as opposed to selling it off with a 50-50 partner. So we'd rather keep everything internal and use other financings in the future to fund those drill programs.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to following you along in the near future with some updates.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.